Silvopasture it's a combination of two words. One is silviculture, which is forestry, and pasture is implying grazing. So it's combining trees and forests with grazing. And it's done very specifically and intentionally in a way that the trees and the grasses that the animals are feeding on and the animals themselves are all benefiting. What's really cool about grazing systems in general is that animals are, at the same time that they're grazing, they're also, of course, fertilizing out the other end, right? So those nutrients are cycled back through, and they're actually sometimes locked up in the plants. And by cycling the animals through, they're unlocked and they're put back into the soil. We've mostly put animals in confinement. We fed them corn essentially, and we've had to deal with this kind of pollution problem from their manure. But if we graze them, it's not a problem. It's actually a critical part of a healthy ecosystem. When we bought this farm, the soil was incredibly compacted. It was really low in organic matter. When water would hit it from rain, it would just pool. It couldn't soak in water into the landscape. There was really no bird habitat. There was no pollinator habitat. And the plant diversity was really low. And what we've been able to do with grazing and with planting trees is find ways to make some money, to support everyone, and to build that ecological health back up. So we don't have to farm at the expense of the birds or the bees. They actually are a good indicator that we're doing things the right way. The idea with carbon sequestration is that if we can pull carbon out of the air and put it back into plants and into soil, that we can actually reduce our emission load, and that would reduce the impacts of climate change. And silvopasture is actually ranked up there as one of the best. Can actually pull carbon out of the atmosphere and hold it in both the trees and also in the soil and in the roots of the trees in the soil. Generally ruminant animals, so we're talking about cows and sheep and goats that can digest grass. They have multi-chambered stomachs, and so they can process this kind of low, what we consider low value food that a lot of other animals can't eat. Particular aspect I'm really interested in is tree fodder, is the idea that we can feed some of the trees to the animals themselves. So a really good example of that is with, are you familiar with willow? Willow's a pretty common tree. It's around a lot, and willow's an interesting one because it's very high in tannins. So like tannins are compounds, like that's what makes wine kind of bitter, and we like those flavors. But tannins also are medicinal to sheep. So when sheep eat willow, they actually ingest the tannins, and what the tannins do is help support their gut health. Silvopasture is much more common in other parts of the world. Especially, it's really been embraced in South America. So in Argentina and Brazil, there's a lot of silvopasture happening. It's basically anywhere that trees grow. So what trees need are a certain amount of rainfall. So if the climate is too dry, then trees don't usually occur there naturally, and so those aren't places that it could work. But that's not far. So if trees are already growing there, then silvopasture can definitely be practiced. The potential is great, and I think one of the big selling points is that it can be a form of agriculture that we can grow healthy meat while also fighting climate change. So if I had a bumper sticker or my elevator speech, that's what silvopasture is most exciting, because there's not a lot of farming practices where you can actually also raise livestock, raise animal proteins, and also fight climate change at the same time.